even if LinkedIn is supposed to be a platform where you should only talk about professional stuff, actually what you've noticed is something different. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, when I started, when I started creating content on LinkedIn, I had been creating content 3 years before that post went viral. That's something worth mentioning because I think people instantly think, oh, you got lucky that first post. And it's like, no, I was creating content way before, like when it wasn't cool to create content on LinkedIn. And now it is. That content before I went viral, it was very much around kind of career and personal and professional development, specifically for students and graduates. But that post that went viral opened me up to a whole different audience that I could tell was looking to have these conversations, but no one was ready to start them. And I was kind of like, I don't work for a company, so I don't feel, restricted as to what I can say. And I could see the value that it had in me sharing my story with so many people, either realizing the same thing or resonating with it, or, wanting to chime into the conversation. So I thought, what else can I talk about that isn't really talked about on LinkedIn or in the corporate world? And so I started to talk about my personal stories. So I talked about going to therapy. I talked about what it was like to go through depression in the city. I talked about having suicidal ideation from a young age. And so a lot of it was around kind of mental health and sort of some of my adversity and struggles. And for me, I think I had seen so much content on LinkedIn that showed the fast cars and the business and the private jets. And I thought, this isn't the reality of what it's like to run a business, or this isn't the reality of life. And I saw that there was an appetite for realness because there was very little of it on LinkedIn. I think there's a lot more of it now, especially with COVID. And so I kind of just decided to start sharing more of me. And I realized that people were interested in my story and following the journey. And I was sort of figuring it out. And I have always been figuring it out, and taking people on that journey. And they've bought into me and they've bought into my journey because they've seen it and have, I connected with someone interestingly yesterday and they were like, I've been following you for 2-3 years. And
Stalking you.
yeah, and it's crazy because, sometimes I never know that unless someone explicitly tells me. But I think, for me, it's never been about selling, even though I run a business. Interestingly, I think a lot of people don't actually know what I do for a living. And that's because I never tell people what I do. I don't want to sell in that way. And I totally respect people that create content around what it is that they sell and stuff. But for me, it's more important around like, what can I teach people and how can I, share with them a bit of who I am and hopefully add value to them. And if they're interested in, finding out more, they'll go to my profile, see what I do for a living and get in touch. But for me, it's more about the story. I think that really grips people more than learning about a certain subject or topic that is your expertise.